All right, Melbourne. They had one of the better trade periods of any club, I thought. They do lose a plethora of players, 3 premiership players in Oliver, Petrarca and Spargo, Bubble. Judd McVie, a young, promising prospect that they've developed, has left to join the Dockers. But they brought in, Jesse, Max Heath, Chankuth Giath, Brody Myercheck, and probably the biggest of them all, Jack Steele, who St Kilda fans are still pretty cut that the captain left the club. The biggest part of their off-season was the first-round picks that they brought in. What did they get in?
7, 8 and a future first while giving up a future second back to the Suns.
Numbers.
I would love to hear you delineate the difference between your assessment on Carlton and Melbourne, because I think there are a lot of parallels between these two off-seasons. A whole lot of less than valuable prospects coming in, let's say. Oh, maybe that's a bit unfair, but like Myercheck, I think. But Heath and Giath are long shots and steals at the end of his career.
I get what you're saying, though. It's a really strong period, but they haven't helped their 2026.
Yeah, that's right. So Petrarca goes out the door in the same way that Kerno goes out the door, and it's a draft-focused one whilst rearranging their depth.
My argument is probably that Melbourne won a flag and the Blues didn't. So
how do you base it on rating their trade period, though?
I feel that the D's have started their rebuild whilst somewhat trying to compete in the last few years. They've brought in Langford, Lindsay, Windsor. Help me here. Who else have they brought in?
Tholstrup.
And there's another.
I kind of forgot
Turner.
who you said.
Turner.
Yeah, something like that.
There's been a number of them over a few years.
Yeah, they've started this rebuild, and now I feel like they've just added that last draft hand that's going to push them into the future. I feel that Carlton are a little bit in purgatory still, and they didn't get the cherry on top, which they thought Charlie Kerno was going to be a premiership key forward for them. So I feel that Melbourne, they get a new coach, they push into the future, and it's a fresh start for them. Whereas I feel that Carlton are sort of backtracking a little bit.
I disagree with that based on the fact that I think whether the fact they won a premiership or not is kind of irrelevant, because either way, like, Carlton needed to readjust, and we all accept this group wasn't going to win a premiership. So I think they're very similar scenarios here.
Can I just add in here too? They've also had, if you take away the 2021 premiership, in those years preceding that, it's been almost identical form. They've gone like finals, haven't gone all the way, and then they dropped off this year.
Yeah, that's right.
They finished 14th 2 years in a row.
Melbourne?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
they did.
Oh, they did too, sorry. So Melbourne's actually dropped off more than Carlton.
Yeah.
Because Carlton only dropped off this year.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll just talk about Melbourne for the time being rather than referencing Carlton relentlessly. I just think there's an interesting parallel there. Both teams accepting that it's time to move. And as you say, Melbourne have sort of accepted that maybe for the last couple of years and didn't trade Petrarca last year. They've done it this year. So overall, how much have they moved in the right direction?
For me, it's great. Like the business that they've done overall. I mentioned it last week I like some of the little moves that they've made here too, like the Jack Steele in, Oliver out. You tick 2 boxes, cultural reset, and you sort of get a pretty similar type player for your depth and probably a better leader overall, someone that's not going to disrupt. Myercheck is a player that they've just needed for a long time, and he brings a lot of experience. He brings a winning mentality, being in the Collingwood Premiership team as well.
Bit of a question mark on Myercheck's health, but
that is fair. But they've paid fairly minimal for him, right? In the end, so it's like a bit of a low risk one.
Yeah.
Jath and Heath are obviously probably like Heath is like a depth ruck, so I don't know what he's going to do, and Jath's probably a project, but
they desperately needed a ruckman because they've been flirting dangerously with this Max Gawn and like one other ruck on the list. So they previously had Fullerton and Will Verrill, who we saw in Step Brothers, but they delisted both of those players. They delisted both of those players, and Max Heath was it just had to happen. So I actually think that's worth noting.
Yeah, and overall, I've given this a B+ grade, and the only reason that I didn't give it higher and give it an A was I rate Judd McVie really highly, and given his age profile and what he could have been, I thought that was a pretty big loss for them.
Yeah.
Overall, I think they've done so well to get what they got for Petrarca. Oliver's probably a cultural move more than anything. They didn't get much back for him, and Spargo's neither here nor there for me. So
yeah. He's basically Jath. That was flipped, that compensation. So I think, you just flip it for another player. Solid work there. I agree on the McVee point. And sorry, forgive me if you've said this in the last 5 minutes or just previously, but Jack Steele for Oliver is that kind of part of that cultural reset where it's, in terms of output and, style of player, it's very similar. And Jack Steele is a captain or previous captain of St Kilda.
This point doesn't come from me either, but people have made the observation that perhaps Jack Steele, given what they want to do with some of those other younger players to be more offensive, Jack Steele's probably a better player for Melbourne than Oliver because Oliver was more of an offensive player and Jack Steele can just be that defensive mid.
Yep. Absolutely agree. And the other thing I'll say about Melbourne is that they seem to be good drafters, particularly early. And I feel a degree of confidence that 7 and 8 will work out well for them. Whether they trade up, I don't know. But looking at their recent first round picks, it's only early days, but they look pretty good to me.
Yeah, Harvey Langford particularly.
Can you project that a little bit for us? What do you reckon they would do
this year? I think it's on the cards they try and move up. And I think, but let's just say they don't. 7 and 8. I think it's time to go tall. They haven't really gone tall since Jefferson, and that Jefferson pick isn't looking super hot right now, with all due respect. I think Schubert for one of those picks makes sense. I think he's a great choice for him as a long-term partner to Van Rooyen. And then what else would you go? I mean, Threadgold is probably a little bit early. I did think about maybe a key defender. Xavier Taylor would have to be a consideration if he's still available. He's probably not expected to be.
He'd be great, I reckon, for the Ds.
Yeah.
It's just whether he's still there.
Yeah. They have drafted midfield focus lately. Could they do that again? Is Dyson Sharp suitable for them? I'm not sure about Sharp. I need to get my actual notes up here.
Sharp feels the only problem for me with Sharp is he a little bit too similar to Harvey Langford, given they're both pretty slow.
Yeah, I agree with that. So Threadgold would be an option if he bolts that far, which is probably questionable. Lockie Doverston.
I was going to say Lockie Doverston. Yeah. He would suit them from a needs perspective.
Yeah.
But it'd be just whether you think that's too high in the draft to take him and you want to go for more talented players.
Agreed. I would also throw Sam Cumming or Sam Grill into the mix of players that would be kind of suitable for them. And they're sort of like Melbourne-esque players.
I was going to say Sam Cumming feels very them.
Yeah.
And it would be to me, it would be kind of a Petrarca replacement.
Yeah.
Long term.
Exactly. So I think there's a number of good options right in that draft.
Yeah, Joel Falconer is saying Grill, Lindsay and Schubert or Taylor. And Schubert would have to be in their considerations.
Yeah. I think Schubert is good for the Ds.
Yeah. Let me start it again. I'm happy with this trade period for them because I feel that it marks the end of an era. They got Petrarca and Oliver the flag. They moved on their coach, and now they can start with a fresh reset. They'll move Cozzy onto the ball more. Rivers, Harvey Langford at the start of his career. It just feels like a ride off into the sunset and start again for the Ds. So I think it's very positive for them.
Yeah, it's probably just how similar it is to Carlton's, I suppose. Like it is, I guess the big difference is that Melbourne have a new coach. Maybe it's a bit more of a turning of the page where Carlton are maybe still a little bit in that, still got Michael Voss obviously and have their foot into the past a little bit more maybe. Birdman has a super chat here for $2. Thanks, mate. Who will win a flag next, the Ds or Richmond?
List-wise, which is stipulated in the question, list-wise, you'd have to say Melbourne, in my opinion.
And when you say list-wise, do you mean talent?
The talent is just a little bit further along. And obviously Richmond drafted well last year, but with so many of them being talls, there's too much of a question mark there. It's too early to tell, but I'd say the Ds are a little bit closer. Whether they even get there at all is another question.
I think the question there is, though, definitely the Ds are closer to being competitive, but does that mean they're closer to a flag?
I mean, how do you separate that when Richmond's had one draft?
Yeah.
I mean, how are they closer to a flag? The Demons, you have to also include Trent Rivers and Cozzy Pickett, whereas Richmond probably don't have that equivalent player who's under 25 who is part of that mix.
No, Richmond have a bit of quality in the later part of their career.
Yeah.
Players in the later part of their career and then they're just very young, right? So
yeah, it's going to be a long build for Richmond, I think.
Yeah. I think, again, this 2025 draft will be really important for them. We'll see a lot of those guys from 2024 that get their second year, those tolls and stuff like that. If they hit on 2 of those tolls, it's probably a big success. And
true.
Houghton and Lawler and Smiley, but a lot to play out.